Faust and Alex Holt here with you today. Alex, tell us what this show is all about.
Yeah, this podcast is all about helping people lead in the everyday spaces and moments of life. And today with us on the show, we have Leah Norton. Leah is the managing partner at Fishhook, and she is the mother of two wonderful daughters, and she's married to Brian.
And before we get to our conversation fully with Leah, which I know you're going to enjoy, this episode of the For Everyday Leaders podcast is sponsored by the Liston Lodge. Liston Lodge is an event venue located in Hendricks County, just 35 minutes from downtown Indianapolis. The estate was a former 22,000 square foot gorgeous private residence, but is now a unique venue that features elaborate woodwork, unique chandeliers, a cozy and homey atmosphere, and beautiful secluded grounds. So whether it's for a special event, a corporate event, or a wedding, visit listonlodge.com. That's listonlodge.com. Leah, welcome.
Good morning.
From down the hall.
Yes, we're neighbors.
We are neighbors, and we've been neighbors for a couple years. It's amazing. And before we were work neighbors, officing in the same space, our dear friend Wade.
That's right.
I met you at his baptism, which was kind of a cool full circle moment years ago. And then also in previous organizations and churches I was a part of, we had some engagements with your organization, Fishhook, and so kind of had some proximity, knew of you, all that kind of stuff. And then in the last year, your team at Fishhook has become clients of our company Switchback, and on the reciprocal end of that, our Wayfinders nonprofit has benefited from Fishhook and collaborating on some things, and you guys have been such a help to us. But you have a great story to tell. You have this incredible journey as a woman leading a company, which is beautiful and wonderful, and we need to hear more stories like that.
Thank you.
And you took ownership of an organization during a pandemic, all the things. And so we are so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
And I know you guys have interacted a little bit too.
We've connected through various, I feel like it's been always in organizations that I've been a part of, that you've been a part of, or it's always been in passing as well. Yeah. I actually interviewed at Fishhook a long while back at the farmhouse. And so, it's been like a journey where we've just connected on various different fronts over the course of the last several years, and then getting to work together on some of the Wayfinders engagements that we're helping with right now, which is awesome.
And I mean, what you guys are saying is there's so much overlap.
There's so much overlap. Underlap.
I love living like that.
It's just all over the place.
It's just a big ball of yarn tangled together. And now we're here.
And now we're here talking about it. And I do feel like all you creative people, creative agency people, always kind of like, I know that person. You all know each other,
we
right?
know about each other.
You know of each other.
We got to keep tabs on the game.
Things, so it's good. So, Leah, tell us a little bit, because I don't even know that I know this, and have never asked, or I've forgotten. But tell us where you grew up. What was life like for Leah growing up?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so I'm a cheesehead originally. But then when I was just a few years old, we moved to Indianapolis here, and this is where I've grown up. So, I was raised, I say my poor parents because my parents are incredible people. They serve, but like in a very behind the scenes kind of way, just very generous, servant oriented people, always looking like what can they do for others, and but more introverted. And they had two daughters. I'm the older of the two of us, and we are extroverted, full of ideas, want to speak up, lead.
Yep.
And so my own children now sometimes look back and they go, how did Mima and Papa, is what they call my parents, how did Mima and Papa raise the two of you? You must have driven them crazy.
That's awesome.
Anyways,
that's
they were an incredible example. And it was, I was very blessed in the home that I was raised in. Got to go to a Christian college, small college, Anderson University. Those were incredible years. I feel like the years from 18 to 22 or 23 just are so formative in just really discerning who are you and where are you headed and what's important to you. And so those were incredible years. And that's really when I felt a nudge to to go into the communications and marketing field. I went into college thinking that like whatever you got A's in high school is what you should major in. And so at first I was like, oh, I've had some success with math and science classes. And that's where I started. A biology class, a calculus class, and I got through that first semester, and I was like, "What the heck am I doing? This doesn't bring me to life at all." And so just kind of went on a journey then to figure out like what am I all about? What will bring me to life apart from what others might think or what others might be pointing me to? And so really got excited about communications marketing, the planning, the strategy. And coming out of college, I had an internship and then I've been in a couple of agency settings, and that has just really brought me to life again and again. But it's so important to discern like what are you called to do again, apart from maybe what others might be pointing you to.
And I think separating, you have things, we see this all the time in some of the work that we're doing, of things that people excelled at or maybe got good grades in, but they were like, wait, I don't really enjoy this. This is not life-giving to me. And don't get me wrong, we all have to do things that we don't like, right? Sometimes in our career and all that kind of stuff. But like if the main thrust or industry or skills that you're using are draining you and not life-giving to you, man, you're probably not going to last in that field or industry. And sometimes we just have to try things to figure them out. But when you can find that lane or that quadrant, as we like to call it, like then you're like, okay, there's some things that can start happening here, right? In that industry and using those skills and stuff.
What was pivotal for me was like some part-time job situations, internship. Like I got to try out a variety of things. And now I have teenage daughters. And we're always encouraging them, like, take that job, take that trip, try that internship out. Just getting introduced to so many different people and settings to figure out, again, like what brings you to life is really important.
Good. Yeah, that's really, really good. So talk about, as you said you had some agency experience, you kind of been in Indy. Talk about that journey of going through some of those agencies, maybe some of the lessons learned along that, and then how you ultimately ended up at Fishhook.
Oh gosh, the agency that I spent the most time at, it's a team called Borshoff in downtown Indy. They've had some incredible success over the years. I was there about 6.5, 7 years. They were so good to me, invested in me, let me try so many things, let me really lead. And when you're in an agency setting, I mean, you're working with all these different organizations, meeting so many different people in different industries and sectors sometimes. And I feel like those, again, 6 or 7 years were so pivotal. I was in my 20s. I was learning so much. Probably working too much. I mean, I probably didn't have great work-life balance, but they were so good to me and really invested in me. I actually, a huge moment for me was I thought I would be there and really grow with them for many years. And then we started our family. And I just realized that I wanted to work less. And all of a sudden, all this creativity and hard work that I'd put into my professional, my career, my work at Borshoff, I was like, I actually want to take that energy, that creativity, and pour that into our home for a season. And so I walked away from Borshoff. Even to this day, I can kind of cry about it. Sometimes I think like, if they knew how emotional I can still get about that, they'd be like, that girl is crazy. Like, what is up with her? But it was so pivotal to walk away from people that I really appreciated, loved, and had really poured into me and given me so much opportunity. I kind of thought I was walking away from my career. Like, I just kind of thought I was like imploding my career. But I was home for a couple of years, and that's really, faith is a huge part of my life. And that is where I felt like I was being asked to do that, to step away. I was home for a couple of years. I loved that time. And then I knew Evan McBroom, who is the founder of Fishhook. We went to church together. And we ended up going, having coffee together. And I realized, wow, he was starting Fishhook. We're an agency, a team that comes alongside churches and ministries. So we're an agency, a marketing communications agency, again, for churches and faith-based organizations, ministries. And I realized, oh my goodness, like everything I have been doing in my career before children, he is starting to do with Fishhook. And I started working part-time for him, with him. And as my kids started growing, my role with Fishhook started growing. And so it was just an incredible time to realize that this huge step of faith for me was actually, and God had amazing things and for the future. And it's been an incredible journey.
Well, and I think there's something really really important about that idea where you talked about leaving Borshoff, of like, it is still so emotional because it is really hard to leave something that's really, really good.
Yes.
But it's so critical to be super in tune with that calling, to know like, I'm leaving something good, but I'm leaving it for something better. And in that season of pouring into your family, like that was the something better. And it could have been easy. I think it's easy for a lot of very driven, successful people to say like, no, I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to figure out how to like make all of this work, and not listen to that tug and listen to that pull.
I think there's so much where we think if we're somewhere, especially now, like now it is like crazy to hear someone being at the same place for 5 to 10 years or anything like that. Like it is the numbers, the dynamics, there's a lot, cultural trends, millennials, how they relate to work, Gen Z, like all of it. It's just different. But because similarly, I had a couple places where I was there for like 6 years, kind of a thing. And the relationships that are formed, right? The opportunities that you get when you're at a place like that for a while, especially when they want to develop you, invest in you, it's good for you and all that kind of stuff. And so, but we probably have something in our mind that's like, here's the outcome I wanted here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when that doesn't happen, especially as Enneagram 3s, I know we're together on that, it can feel like a defeat. It can feel like a loss, but then also being like, but this is what's in my heart to do. I want to do this. I love this. Saying goodbye to, even though there's relationships and stuff, like it's not the same, right? When you're not seeing people day in and day out and in the trenches with them and all that stuff. So I think there's so much there, for our listeners too, of just thinking through, sometimes you can say a healthy goodbye and that's a victory.
Yes.
And that's a win and that's healthy and that's good, because the pruning that then can start that, whatever that pruning season is for you, to say, hey, I need to just focus here for a while at home, or maybe it's some other project that you're trying to, whatever your situation might be. And then start to seeing all those dots kind of start connecting and things converging. And you're like, oh, I'm going to church with this guy and he's doing something that's kind of interesting to me and could maybe show me that this season that I stewarded and enjoyed can now be used for something else. And that's really, really unique.
Yes. I've learned so much over the years about just the seasons of life, and that, sometimes I want to like cling to the current season or finding the next season. And it's like, I need to go with the flow a little bit more, and it's just like, there are times for things, and then there's a time to let some things go and move on to the next. And as scary or as unknown as that might be, it ends up being a really good, healthy thing. But don't burn bridges in the midst of it. Like as much as possible, absolutely. Be appreciative and grateful and thank people. And as you're moving with them or away from them in seasons.
So good.
Talk to us about that gap. So you're now starting this Fishhook thing. You're getting more hours. You guys are doing this new thing, helping churches and ministries with marketing, messaging, all that kind of stuff. Kind of what then kind of led to this opportunity in 2020 to say, hey, you're going to be in charge of this whole thing.
From the beginning, I mean, I mentioned like having coffee with Evan, like we had a great chemistry together, and he's very entrepreneurial and had big ideas. And I bring some of that too, but like I could see what he was thinking, add to it, and then give it some arms and legs to then move forward. And so that was an incredible just partnership. And we started seeing fruit in our work together. And over the course of several years, the team kept growing. And we are so committed to our mission I still am today, serving the local church, serving faith-based organizations. And so just, I would say incrementally, the company grew, and there was more need. As there were more people, there was more need for more leadership. And so, like I said, like as the company grew, it truly grew kind of with my it's my personal story and our family growing and the company's story. Like we've grown kind of side by side. That's something very like personal and special to me that I feel so grateful for. I don't take that. I try to never take that for granted.
Yeah. That's super awesome. So talk about in that journey and in that transition to you now becoming that managing partner at Fishhook. Talk about maybe something along the way that's been a truly formative moment in that transition, in that journey, something you look back on and you're like, that was this moment that I will remember in my leadership journey forever.
Yeah. Well, I would say, with Evan, it became clear that, obviously, like we all deserve to move on to a different season someday for, there's retirement. So pretty early on, it was like, oh my goodness, like the mission of Fishhook, our work, I want it to carry on. We both agreed, like we want it to be bigger than just its founder. Yeah. That takes years of work to put in place leadership, team, the work so that you can carry on beyond your founder. And so I would just say, I don't know if it was ever a particular moment, but out of a lot of prayer and conversation and work together, Evan and I just realized that I was going to be the bridge. And I have felt this kind of deep, even ahead of the work we do, or that I do specifically at Fishhook. I just have felt like there was a deeper purpose or calling on my time at Fishhook to be the bridge from Evan as the founder to the next set of leaders and team. And so that's what I've been about the last couple of years. That bridge continue. I think it's like it's like a 10-year window to take it from his transition, his leaving to now where we are. We're a couple of years in, but I want to make sure the company is continuing to thrive and grow and be all in with our mission and all in with our team. And so for me, like we're still in that transition to make sure Fishhook is in a good place for the years to come.
And I think in the life cycle of any organization or any work in general, there's different times and different seasons and different skills and different leadership that needs to be elevated or moved. And I love how you talked about kind of being like riding the wave of that initial, years and years. It wasn't just like, hey, 1 year it was this, and then it was like years of this work. Yeah. And then finding a way to continue to sustain that, to innovate and grow and to change with the times while staying true to the mission. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about that because then, as you were, taking on the leadership of Fishhook completely, a pandemic happens.
Right. Oh gosh.
And so, and there was this, I think obviously impacted everything in society. And I think in terms of your clients, the local church, it was like a lot of these larger churches are now trying to figure out this digital ministry thing. Some had already been there. How do they message things? But I also think in that season, there's been a lot of tension of like, what is the church moving forward? Yes. We have this digital thing that's helpful. We have these, larger churches that have boomed in the last, 20 some years. Yeah. But then there is even in some of the larger, like this move to micro, not just digital, micro. And so how do you kind of pivot and change with that while staying true to who you are and kind of give us a roadmap of that the last couple of years? Because I think that's stuff that whether you're running a company or a nonprofit or involved in a company, nonprofit working there, or just things in your community, how we did rec sports with kids to small groups in our homes to whatever it might be. Like it's been a disorienting kind of time. So how do you stay true to the mission in that, but also kind of move with the times? Yeah. And I think for you guys, there was always that, okay, we've got to support differently because our clients are facing some new challenges. So talk a little bit about that. 'Cause you guys did some interesting things and really helpful collaborative things that helped a lot of people in that time.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like my first reaction, I mean, those are incredible questions. I feel like kind of my first calling is to connect dots between what's going on in the world and culture, what's even going on sometimes personally for me or with our team and with people just all around me. And like, how does this impact our churches and how they are serving people? And so I feel like being a dot connector is really important in our leadership, in our work, and then bringing that to our churches. I mean, 2020 will go down as just this like unbelievable year. And we all had to rally. I mean, that was us at Fishhook. I was Shayla Kenworthy, who is my business partner.
Shayla's awesome.
Shayla and I bought the company from Evan. We signed the paperwork officially on March 25th, 2020.
Wow.
So, I mean, we did it online, digitally, at home with the bank. Like everything was shut down. So it was crazy. So we were like, are we crazy? But we felt a peace. We felt like this was our purpose. To take over the company officially from Evan. So we felt good, but then it was like, what the heck are we doing? But like that gave us incredible empathy for our churches because they were saying, what the heck are we doing? And then we were all like, along with the rest of the world, like wanting our families to be safe and caring about our kids getting to school and what were we doing for work and just all that was going on in the world. And so just being a dot connector and having incredible empathy, like that for me is where it starts. A lot of prayer first, and then that empathy. And that's what we've tried to bring to our churches again and again. Where are they called to serve in this season? And we sure hope it's a lot online and it's also in person, but it's meeting people where they're at and having incredible empathy for the people you serve and wanting to bring them value and encouragement and very tangible help. And I mean, that's just personally what I'm trying to live out. That's what our team is trying to live out. And I think it's what the world is asking for. And so we're trying to encourage our churches in the same way. Like, what is your unique, distinct story, church? And we say this for our team and even for each of us individually. What's our distinct story? Who are we called to connect with? What do they need? Especially in this season, because there's so much hurt and struggle and weariness. And let's bring them real connection, real value. Not just do things to be doing things or to be busy. I don't want to force anything. I just want to see people wherever they're at and really bring them value.
And that question of like that you asked of what do they need? What do the people that we're serving need? I have seen working in marketing and communications in churches, like I have seen the shift in churches, organizations like Fishhook, helping churches think that way. Because I think for a long time, we've seen this movement of like, we're just going to market our message, our programs, our whatever's going on. And we've not taken into account, like, what do the people that we're serving actually need from us as the church? We're not listening to them. We're not asking them questions. We're not inviting them into the process. And I've seen you guys do that really, really well. And I've just seen that shift happen in the last few years. And that's such a critical part of like what we do in the marketing and communication spaces. It's not just about pushing a message out. It's about inviting someone in to help them find the connection, the hope, the help that they're looking for.
Because I think on anything in, with churches and marketing, you're selling something. And I know people don't like that term, but that's what it is. You're messaging something to invite people to be a part of, right? And but similarly, like in a business angle of things too, like you might be ready to sell, but somebody's might not be ready to buy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
and I think the invitations, the accessible on-ramps, and I was just having a conversation with a young person this week, and they were like, they grew up in the church, and they're just like, I'm just disappointed. Like, I'm just disappointed with, like, not just like the collective, all the local churches, but like, here's a couple of things that have happened or some groups I was part of, and they're like, I know I don't want to give up on this.
Yeah.
But I want to know what I'm getting myself into, what I belong to, what I'm a part of, the story, the great narrative, right? And I think as a Christian, like, God is the great narrator. Like, he is the great, he's created this great narrative for us to be a part of, right?
Yes.
And so it behooves us to invite people to be a part of a great narrative, right? And like, this is what this is. And this is what it actually looks like, because usually, I'm going to preach a little bit here. Usually most people won't, when they argue against Christianity, they use Jesus as the benchmark.
Yep.
Well, you don't look like him. They don't argue against him. They argue against the church. And I think the opportunities of the last couple of years, it was such an inflection point culturally in society that you guys did such a great job. I know there was this collaborative initiative around the city that you guys did, this campaign that was really cool. I know you guys started like a podcast during that time to create additional resources in that unique season. Yeah. And I think that empathy, that listening to need is so important for us in just daily life, let alone in our nonprofits, churches, businesses, or places we work, like empathy every day. And I love that. And I love the practical ways that you guys have done that as an organization too.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we talk about like what's been pivotal, 10 years ago, our team really connected with inbound marketing and went to some conferences and that marketing and communications, it is like about selling.
Right.
Quote unquote, but really inbound marketing is about serving people first, giving them help, giving them information that they're looking for, giving them encouragement and inspiration. And then when they're ready to connect with your organization because there's a need, then that will happen. But it's about a relationship. Yeah. It's about serving people. And that's what I love. And that's what we so try, especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
How do we help our churches and our faith-based organizations care about people, building the relationship and responding to need? And that's what really then ignites your communications and marketing efforts.
Yeah. That's really good, because what a great posture to have. Like, hey, let's just add value to people, period.
Yes.
Like, and oh, by the way, they'll know that we're here if they want something else. But like, even if they don't, they got something. Yeah. You were able to contribute. And I think that's definitely more of like that abundance mentality too, of like, I have something to give, I'll give it.
Yes.
I may not have much, but whatever I have to give here, I'm giving it out.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm putting value in, and we can do that as individuals. We can find creative ways to do that in our organizations. And I think that's just probably a good way to live. Hey, how do I add value to other people?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Personally, that's an incredible way to live. And for our team at Fishhook, that's what we're striving to do, and definitely with our churches and organizations we're working with.
What's one thing, you may have some people listening to this and they're maybe on this entrepreneurial path that they don't quite understand yet, of maybe taking, something over, or just innovating, just creating where they're at. Maybe there are people who, there's unfortunately in our society, there's unnecessary barriers sometimes for various people, for women to lead, for persons of color to lead in the workplace. What would you just say to that person that's like ready for the courageous thing, but they're looking at them in the mirror saying, should I be doing this? Am I qualified to do this? Like all this kind of stuff, because I know that in that seat of leadership, especially when you're a part of an organization and then you transition into that more formal leadership role. Yeah. What's that been like? What would you say to that person?
Yeah. Well, it's easy for all of us to have, huge doubts. feel insecure about things. I mean, I think we all fight those demons at some degree. Imposter syndrome, fear of failing. There's just all kinds of things. I mean, the self-talk that goes on in each of our heads, you know, I mean, that is a huge piece of like kind of my adult journey. Calling that out and not being afraid to say, I have these questions, I have these insecurities. I find that when I say things out loud and just acknowledge them, sometimes they even almost completely go away.
Yes.
Because, I mean, and I'm an extrovert, so maybe that's part of it, but it's like when I get some of the questions or the doubts or the fears from my head and just say them out loud, and then process them maybe with a counselor. I have a counselor, a friend, my spouse, coworker. Shayla obviously is my business partner. I mean, I try to process all of that with her. Like you say things out loud and all of a sudden that is like more than half the battle.
Yes.
Because then people come around you and they're gracious and they're encouraging and supportive. So that's a huge piece. For me, again, as a Christ follower, my faith is so key. For me, knowing when to push hard and then when and persevere, because that's really important, the diligent work, but also then finding rest and having space to talk and hear from God. I mean, that is so critical. Because when I quiet myself and say a prayer, read the Bible, like those, if I'm willing to give that a half an hour a day, maybe on a Saturday morning when I have a little bit more time, if I'm giving that an hour, I cannot believe the thoughts or ideas that I just believe God gives me in that quiet space. And because our world is so noisy, especially the last couple of years. I mean, there's a lot to be upset about, concerned by, worried, along with our own doubts. And so knowing, balancing when to work hard and when to rest and have quiet and to hear from God and to connect with others is just, that's pivotal. The last thing I'll say is just, I want, as the leader at Fishhook, I just want to pour my heart into loving our team, truly loving our team. I'll be very honest, like it's very easy as a leader to like put your best foot forward in front of the team and then behind closed doors or to yourself, like have questions or frustrations and to doubt people, to not assume the best. And it's like, I don't want to be that person. I want to be whatever I present to others. That's what I want my thoughts to be in private conversations. And so I just want to believe the best. There's time to like push people or give feedback or help them grow through a situation. But so then that's when you talk about like leading and new ideas, like I want to do this with our team. And so when I believe in them and they believe in me, trust is high and the relationship is growing, then it's like, I might have some great ideas, but I love looking around at our full team and there's like all these different ages and men and women working together. And I just want to like, what do you see? What do you think? I don't care about how, in fact, I kind of assume the best ideas will come from others. And I just want to have open ears and eyes to see that. And so I just want to do it together.
Brene Brown talks about that idea of like power with and power over. And that idea that there's so much more power with people when we are like in something together with them than when we as leaders just decide I'm going to have power over you because my title says I can, because I feel like I should. And that's when you like stifle leadership, stifle team growth, and really just start to like flatline your organization and your ability to lead. So I love that. As we start to head toward the end of our conversation today, Leah, what is a book, what is a podcast maybe that you've listened to recently, something you've read recently that you're like, this is just really speaking to me and could potentially speak to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Earlier this year, we worked through a book with one of our clients, Herding Tigers. It's by Todd Henry. It has been an incredible book to help me. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I love Todd Henry. I listen to his Accidental Creative podcast on the regular. So very, very big fan of his work.
The notion, that book, one of the big concepts from it that we've just been working through as a team. Truly, we read the book probably in the spring, and now we've been working the last several months to really put some things that we were learning and processing from that book into place, is that creatives, and I would say all people, but in the workplace, they need stability and consistency and some structure. And then the creativity, the spontaneity, the work comes out of that structure.
Yes.
And so preach. I think for a while, I thought, less structure would be best for our environment.
Yeah.
Because people need lots of freedom to be really creative. Yep. I don't want to tie them down or have too many rules or guidelines or whatever. And so that book it's very practical.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go overboard either, but that creatives, our team really does need to know what they can count on.
Yep.
And what are some key parts of our work that for different projects, what are the details, what are the knowns?
Yes.
They need that stability, and then tons of amazing creativity can come out of that. But you need to kind of know the size of your sandbox to play in.
We talk about the sandbox in our organization all the time, that when you can give a creative the sandbox to play in, I can build an incredible sandcastle inside of it. But if I just know that I'm on the beach and there's no boundary, I could build something and then you're going to tell me, hey, we super missed the mark and you should have been over there building.
Yes.
And so that is the topic I could preach on today, is that creatives need boundaries.
Love you guys getting on your soapboxes.
This is a thing for me. So I love that book, and I love that mentality that I think for all of us, when we understand the parameters, we can build incredible things.
And I think it's a good book for not just if you're a creative, of course it is, but if you're around those or leading those that are leading in creative environments or kind of ideating, innovating, just helping kind of reset that, like you said, and helping to understand that. So it might be something good to say, hey, this might not be the book for me, but to say, I'd like to read this with a couple of people to let them fly. And those kind of conversations can then be, hey, would you want to read this book with me? And you're like, I'm not sure how to mentor somebody or if I'm qualified. Take that step, whether it's someone in your, neighborhood, whether it's somebody that you work with, volunteer with, whatever, could be a really good way to
and I think
say,
the other
hey,
thing,
I see something in you.
The other thing I would say is it is a principle for all people who lead, because we are all creative. We were born, creativity is solving
God
problems.
Made us.
Right? We serve a creative God, and we were created to be creative. And so I think it's a principle for everyone, regardless of you would say that you are a stereotypical creative. We were all designed to solve problems. And so it's a great read. That whole principle is just, I think, so critical in our society and our world today.
Yeah, it's great.
So Leah, how can people find you, find Fishhook, get involved with all that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, we're on social media at Fishhook HQ, so Instagram and Facebook, and then our web address is fishhook.us.
Yeah. And you're on all the
Instagram,
socials, all the things.
Not really Twitter. I got to tell you,
it's fine.
It's I'll scroll
it's a different place.
Little.
Yeah, it's changed in the last couple of years.
Yeah. I personally, I love the pictures and the content on Instagram and a little bit of Facebook.
Absolutely. Well, we want to say thank you, Leah, for joining us today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the 4 Everyday Leaders podcast by Wayfinders. We hope it helps you lead in the everyday spaces and moments of your life.
Yeah, we would love for you to continue to join us on the journey of the 4 Everyday Leaders podcast by Wayfinders. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and YouTube. Leah, thanks again for walking down the hall, joining us today.
Yes. So good. Love this conversation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.